We're ranking the Final Destination films. Yay. Why? Because there's a new one coming out in like 2 weeks. Why not? The fuck? Gonna try not to make this too long-winded, but let's just get into it. All of these films, I've seen a plethora of times, so they're all pretty fresh in my mind, even the ones that I have not watched in a while. With all of these films, I'm not gonna say that they're good or bad films. I feel like they're both good and bad for different reasons, which, I'm not gonna go too in depth as to why that is, but I'm just gonna give you my thoughts and my rankings, and if you agree with me, let me know. If you disagree with me, let me know. I feel like a majority of people will be with me when I say that the least favorite Final Destination film in the franchise is the Final Destination, funnily enough. This was intended to be the last Final Destination movie, and I am very, very glad that it wasn't, because it would have ended on a very sour note. I remember, and that's the thing, I remember when all of these came out too, and they don't feel that long ago, but then when you watch these, it's just like, damn, like, where did the time go? But I remember the Final Destination. This was a very, very odd film, honestly. Centered around the NASCAR accident, which is probably the most random accident that you could have out of these movies. It's one that is very out there, and what happens is just extremely just like, because NASCAR is a dangerous sport, but for it to turn into all of this is pretty mad. This was also at a time where every movie was 3D, and I'm pretty positive that I either watched this in 3D in the theaters. I don't remember, but I do remember watching it somewhere in 3D, in 3 dimensions. Now, did it kind of make things a little cool? I guess, but just as far as the story and how everything turns out, it's the same. It doesn't really do anything different, with it being very similar to the last ones and not really, touching new ground. It makes you just want to watch the first 3 more, because I think the tone of this one is a little too comedic. It's a little too, feels like a parody of itself almost. Everybody goes to these movies to watch the death scenes because we're all morbid human beings. Even the death scenes in this, while pretty nuts as they are, they're just so random. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's so many random elements, and of course there has to be a suspension of disbelief when it comes to these movies. But just the way certain things happen for, characters to be placed in situations to die, it's just like, all right, there's a lot going on for all of these things to create this death scene. And so it kind of just, I guess it just loses me, after like the second one, or actually after the first one, where the dude he's planting the cross on the black guy's lawn, and then he gets dragged by his truck and then blows up, and it's goofy, and then it doesn't look as good as the other movies. Honestly, it feels like like I said, it just looks like a parody movie compared to the first ones, or the first 3 in the franchise. Characters aren't really likable, which, it's hard to say that any characters in this franchise are. At least the lead character, I'm not gonna lie, Nick is kind of slow. He kind of just, he figures all of this out, after like almost everybody is dead. At least with the other characters, he kind of tries to save, or they kind of try to save everybody before everything goes down. Yeah, Nick just kind of people just really just bite the dust in this shit, and he doesn't really, connect the dots until like it's really like 3 of them left anyway. He even lets his best friend just die, which like, if you had an inclination that, people are dying in crazy ways, why would you? I don't know. It's not much to even think about. Final Destination, or the Final Destination, is lowest rated film on this. So yeah. Number 4, we have Final Destination 2. Now, when I was little and I saw this one, or when I saw all 3 of them for the first time, before the 4th one came out, I said that this one was my favorite one, and looking back, I don't really know why that was. I think it was just because Some of the, you know, deaths in this one were like just pretty wild, like for wacky, like crazy. You know, I'm talking Rory, I'm talking Tim. Like those are like ingrained in my brain for whatever reason. It was just crazy. And the fact that Tim's character was supposed to be like 9 is even crazier. It's sick. This one is with the pileup on the interstate or the highway or, you know, whatever. It's fine. I don't think that this movie is like necessarily like shitty, and of course I have a lot of nostalgia bias with this because I was young when these came out. You know, I thought that these movies were a lot better when I was younger. They're all in like the same, you know, realm of mediocrity. It's Final Destination. It's not like I'm talking about Citizen Kane or, you know what I'm saying, like we're not approaching, you know, Tarkovsky right now. It's Final Destination. So, you know, they're all kind of in the same realm. But this one, I think it's fine. You know, it's fine. It's fine. The characters are fine. It is pretty gnarly. What I like about this one is that it kind of has a similar tone to the first one, which is really cool, and it's something that I had to give demerits to the fourth one for because it just felt too corny and, you know, cheesy. And so, you know, that I like that about the second one. Like I said, it's fine, like middle of the tier. Can't really, you know, take too much away from it. Yeah, it's well, actually, I'm starting to remember now. There was like the whole thing with like the baby and, you know, life and death and that whole shit. The pregnant woman, yes, I remember. Okay, yeah, no. Yeah, all of that shit lost me. I'm not gonna lie. I'm remembering it as I'm talking about this. There's like the whole thing with the pregnant woman and, you know, people were dying, but she gives birth and it's like it kind of balances out and it's like y'all are getting a little bit too damn, you know, you're doing a little bit too much. Like I didn't come to the movie for all of this. So yes, I definitely will give it demerits for that too. Yeah, fuck that. Yeah, just kill everybody, not the baby. Oh, all right, yep, no, let me just switch that. Final Destination 2, that's 4. Number 3 on the list, I will have to say Final Destination 5. Middle of the tier, and you know, I'm it's tough for me to put this here because I did really enjoy it after the monstrosity that was the last one, or that was the fourth one. But on my rewatch of this film, because this is the most recent one that I rewatched, this movie just happens. Like it's just so quick. It doesn't give you time to learn shit about anybody before things kind of start going down, which is like, all right, we're at the 5th one, so it's like you kind of get the gist. But you know, I don't know anything. I like, they kind of throw hints at like, you know, what the characters got going on. Like, okay, they're in a relationship, she's a hoe, they're in a relationship, he's a cook, he's the manager, and all right, boom, they all kind of just, you know, just start kicking it after that. I think that I do like this. This is the bridge accident film. This movie's very quick, and I don't know if all of them are this fast. Like they're all, I don't know the runtime for each one of these specifically, but this movie literally, like as soon as it starts, it feels like, all right, accident, boom. What I like about this one though is that it kind of tries to break a little bit of new ground with the new rule of, you know, you have to kill somebody and turn into Dahmer to give yourself more time and whatnot. And while I think that kind of opened the door for some pretty big plot holes, or it kind of makes everything a little bit more confusing and just way darker. It's like, damn, like they gotta resort to killing people to save their own lives. But I do think that, you know, at least they tried to do something different, which I like. This guy looks incredibly like he looks way too much like Tom Cruise. I every time I watch this movie, I don't think that it's Tom Cruise, but it's like he looks more like Tom Cruise than Tom Cruise looks like Tom Cruise right now. Obviously Tom Cruise is a lot older now, but he looks too much like Tom Cruise for him not to be Tom Cruise. It doesn't make any sense. And he also has low-key the worst death in the entire franchise. No, I'm thinking about, yeah. Some of these deaths were a little bit mid. You know, getting shot, getting stabbed and shit. Yeah, no. I don't come to Final Destination to see people get shot. I'm trying to see some walk, some real shit. Outside of that, I think the biggest thing about this film that, you know, definitely puts it above the rest and makes it confusing as to why they're even making another one is the twist at the end that it happens before the first film. I thought that this was like up there with the Star Wars Luke, I am your father twist for me when I was little. I was like, holy shit, like, wow, they just did something crazy. Once I realized that they was on Flight 180 at the end of the film, that shit blew my mind. And I thought that it was, you know, that made I think the ending of this film is better than the film itself, which if it were up to me, I think that's fine, because Lord knows I hate bad endings for the life of me. I no pun intended. I really don't like bad endings, and I thought that while this movie isn't perfect, whoever thought of that ending, they definitely deserve a raise. I'm not gonna lie, that ending was fire. So yeah, Final Destination 5, middle of the pack. Can't be too mad at that. Number 2 on the list of Final Destination ranked, we got the OG. We got number 1. It's just called Final Destination. I like this film a lot because I don't really know if this franchise was intended to be a franchise, and I definitely got that vibe from this first one. I think out of all of them, the tone of this one is the best. You definitely have that feeling of there is something like here, you know? You don't really see it. You kind of see glimpses of it, but it does feel way more, you know, omnipresent than the next ones. I think the ones after this focus a lot on just the death scenes and just making these characters just more and more unlikable. But this first one definitely felt like, you know, they had some type of idea of the vibe that they wanted to go with for this one. It's a lot darker. There's not a lot of crazy shots and, you know, cinematography, you know, things that they do with this one. It's bland, it's dark, it's pale, it's very early 2000s, it's cold, and it just has a certain aesthetic to it that I think that the later ones kind of, you know, miss out on. And it's like seeing this one and then seeing the fourth one, it's like you see why I say that the fourth one feels like a parody, because this one, it's just a certain tone with this one that, you know, I think that works so well. And then on top of that, even with the characters, I think this is the most well thought out characters. They're all still pretty unlikable in their own way. This one definitely is. This one, and obviously the next one, which, you know, y'all know what the next one is gonna be. This film and Final Destination 3, I think the circumstances and the scenarios that create the visions and whatnot are the scariest for sure, because those were the two scenarios for me as a child that I, you know, just, they had me with those. You know, car pile up, okay. NASCAR event, I probably wasn't going to one anyway. The bridge, yeah, but like I said, the fifth one came out, you know, after those, so I'll say the bridge too. The bridges is pretty crazy. The airplane, I think, you know, just that scenario, is just, you know, you kind of have, you already got a lot of the audience with that one, and then just seeing how the film unfolds. And I could imagine just watching these for the first time, or watching this first one for the first time. I could see definitely why they wanted to turn it into a franchise. I definitely do think that Alex is the best, like, vision character. I don't think that they've had a character to top him. I think you definitely feel for him. You definitely kind of just want him to figure everything out. And he's kind of aloof. And he does, you know, he is a nutcase a little bit. He's a little, you know, wigged out, but yeah, I think, you know, he definitely works as the main character of this first film, which I definitely appreciate. You know, the death scenes are, you know, pretty iconic from this one. Pretty much all of them, not gonna lie. And I think the main thing about this one is just the tone of it. I think this has the best tone out of the franchise. So yeah, Final Destination 1 is my second ranked on this. And also, I give Final Destination 2, I just remembered, Final Destination 2 deserves a demerit as well for killing Alex off screen. I understand that there is probably money situations or whatever, but why would you just kill him off screen, bro? Yes, Final Destination 2 deserves where it's at. Which makes my number one, Final Destination 3. That is my highest ranked film out of this franchise. There's a lot that I can say about this one. I think it takes elements of the first two that worked really well. It definitely has that tone. Not as well as the first one, but there is a certain tone of like, this is a very wacky situation. And it's just it is dark. It has its moments of levity here and there. A lot of these deaths are like pretty goofy when I look back. Still wild, but also goofy. What works really well with this one for me is the characters. For one, because they actually look younger, which always made it a lot more off-putting. Now, they could have been the same age as all the other, movie cast members, but the fact that it was a high school, the fact that it was a roller coaster incident, what I really loved about this one was the pictures and the photographs. And I think that's what I meant by it trying to break new ground and do something different. And I like that the pictures kind of gave a indication of what was gonna happen to certain characters. Yeah, I think that was pretty cool. It is also very intense. It's a lot more, especially like that third act where the whole centennial is going on, and there's all these characters in these crazy positions and situations. I think that was really cool. Definitely was the best, I'll say, like climactic scene of the franchise as well. The mall scene in the fourth one could have been too, but that was a dream. You know what I mean? Like they should have just went with it. Like the fact that was a dream made it so trash. Yeah, but the ending of the third one is really crazy. I think I enjoyed that about it. I'll say, if you haven't seen this franchise yet, first of all, why are you watching this if you haven't watched any of these movies? But if you don't care, I'll say that this one definitely is a good third film in a franchise. It takes what works for the first two and makes a good third one while also adding new elements and just creating a situation that is a lot more relatable, at least for me, because I like roller coasters now, but at the time that I watched this, I did not like roller coasters. So this one definitely, always grabbed me for sure. Especially that like opening premonition in the third one is like that, and the first one are definitely like just ingrained in my head. And yeah, that's my ranking. We got the Final Destination, quote unquote, which is not true. We have Final Destination 2, Final Destination 5, Final Destination, and then Final Destination 3 as my top film. I'm not gonna say I'm eager for this new one that's coming out, but I am intrigued. I'm not as intrigued as I would have been, like 10 years ago. Lord knows I was really waiting to see what Final Destination 6 was gonna be about. I do love that it is taking the franchise in a new direction, but I'm hoping that it doesn't get too confusing and I just hope it doesn't do too much. But I like that it's doing, the whole generational bloodline thing, because that makes it, kind of think about the franchise in many different ways, rather than just creating a new accident and having the same situation over again. So yeah, looking forward to it. Definitely gonna have my review on it. So stay tuned for that. And thank you for watching this video. This was a bit of a longer one. But if you enjoyed, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button if you like, and comment your rankings for this franchise. If you share my ranking, if you love the fourth one out of all of them, and you hate the third one out of all of them, let me know. Throw your rankings in the comments. Let's discuss it. Let's talk about it. And until next time, what did Tony Todd say? I'll see you again, or some shit. I don't know what he said. Like and subscribe. Thank you. Good watch. These are all decent watches. I ain't gonna lie. It's a good franchise. This isn't City of God or that nature type of film, but this is good American filth franchise, I will say. All right, see y'all later. Peace.